Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Alright, so you all wanted a championship video, right? Well, here's your championship video, you greedy gremlins. Right, let's take a look at every championship club and find one current player who must really hate how their careers turned out. These are players who are billed as making the grade of big clubs. Well, right now they've just seen their potential splattered across a toilet bowl. Right, let's go. Barnsley, HERBIE, KANE. A bit harsh maybe, but lads, go back 2 years ago and HERBIE KANE was a promising Liverpool playmaker being nominated for the Golden Boy Award. He was even making his debut for the first team in an EFL Cup game at MK Dons. But clearly Jurgen Klopp must have thought he had ankles made of pudding, because right now he's 22 and just been sold to Barnsley for 1.25 million quid. And in today's market, he might as well have been sold for 2 Jaffa cakes and a half-empty packet of Quavers. Birmingham, Scott Hogan. Listen, I know Scott Hogan is scoring goals at Birmingham, but lads, usually if you're scoring goals for Brentford, you usually wind up in the Premier League. And that's what he did back in the 16-17 season, smashing on 14 goals. I remember sweating over whether or not England were going to try and steal it from Ireland, but honestly, I shouldn't even have bothered. Nowadays, Gareth Southgate wouldn't even employ him to fetch the bibs in training. This guy used to be linked with half the Premier League's bottom half. No, now he's a 7-goal-a-season striker in a championship relegation battle. Blackburn, Daniel Ayala. You probably won't remember, but Daniel Ayala was one of Liverpool's most promising young defenders under Rafa Benitez. He was reaching FA Youth Cup finals, making his Premier League debut at 18, and then his potential was chewed into wet spaghetti. He hasn't played a single Premier League match in 5 years, and at the age of 30 is a bench-warming defender for Blackburn. Not great. Bournemouth, Jack Wilshere. I'm gonna guess that when Jack Wilshere arrives at training every day at Bournemouth, he probably prepares by spending at least 20 minutes crying in his car. This guy was billed as the next great English talent since he was 16 years of age, and Arsenal fans were actually offended when Pep Guardiola said there were a bunch of Wilsheres in his Barcelona B team. Yeah, one of those B team members is a current European champion, while Wilshere just spent 6 months eating Cheetos on the couch. Wilshere, because of his wet knee cartilage, is scrapping for championship playoffs in a dressing room with Dominic Solanke. This guy used to be coached by one of the most tactically innovative geniuses in modern football. Now he's being shouted at by Jonathan Woodgate, who I'm guessing has the tactical acumen of a state like sandwich. Brentford, Pontus Jansson. Yeah, I'm just picking this man so I can laugh at the fact that I don't have to have his mugshots tattooed on my body for life. Listen, this Swedish international was held up as a defensive rock at Leeds United. Speak to any Leeds fan back in 2018 and they would swear blind on their children's graves that Jansson was destined for greatness. Well, he turns 30 years old this week and still hasn't sniffed in the direction of the Premier League. Maybe next season, but considering Brentford's late season meltdown last time out, I wouldn't hold your breath. Bristol City, Thomas Callas. It's easy to forget, but Thomas Callas was supposed to be John Terry's successor at Stamford Bridge. I know, nowadays, when he's 27 and stuck at Bristol City, you wouldn't trust him to clean JT's boots with his tongue. But back in 2014, the day of the Stevie G slip, he was contributing to a Chelsea clean sheet at Anfield on his debut. Good Christ, he even hit the crossbar. Let's not forget, he was keeping both Gary Cahill and Nathan Ake stuck to the bench that day. So yeah, a bit of a letdown. He's amounted to nothing more than championship standard. Cardiff, Harry Wilson. Yeah, good old Harry Wilson. 2 years ago, when this guy was belting home 18 goals on loan at Derby County with David Beckham-esque free kicks, Liverpool fans were almost falling over themselves to get him in their matchday squad. Apparently this was a Welsh wonder kid destined for greatness at Anfield. But no, he's not a child anymore. He turns 24 next month, was recently relegated with Bournemouth, and is now stuck on loan at Cardiff. This guy is Wales' youngest ever player, and yet he's currently spending his mid-20s being barked at by Mick McCarthy. Something's gone wrong somewhere. Coventry, Matty James. Look, we know the reason for this. Matty James has had his career ripped apart by injuries. This guy was one of the top academy prospects at Old Trafford, spending 5 years at Manchester United, and was even being named on the bench a week before a Champions League final. And I suppose even being acknowledged that you exist by the greatest manager of all time, that's an achievement in itself. But yeah, he's 29 and had his career ruined by injuries and is now loaned out from Leicester to Coventry. Derby County, David Marshall. I could touch on Jordan Ibe, but you know what? I'm going with David Marshall. Don't forget, there's a Scottish goalie who at 19 years of age was keeping 2 clean sheets for Celtic when they dumped Barcelona out of the UEFA Cup. Good Christ, most teenage children facing Ronaldinho would probably be sweating out their ears. But good Christ, this fella actually saved a penalty from him in the Champions League. But it took him another decade to gain some recognition in the Premier League. But lads, who remembers his heroics for Cardiff in 2014? Well, yeah, he went down, but he's the only player who actually looked half decent. To prove it, Arsenal spent the summer trying to sign him, but he didn't get the move, got relegated with Hull and Wigan, and now struggling to stay afloat with Derby County. I'm sorry, but this guy kept 2 clean sheets against Barca as a teenage child, and he's just going to end his career with just 6 clean sheets in the Premier League? Come on, Marshall. Huddersfield, Rolando Aarons. I don't know what happened to Rolando Aarons' career. This guy was supposed to be Newcastle's very own Raheem Sterling, a talented Jamaica-born English winger with a eye for goal. This guy was scoring in the Premier League for Newcastle at just 18. He absolutely tore Manchester City apart at the Etihad in the League Cup, but fast forward 7 years, and the guy is just known as Max Aarons' cousin. Now Newcastle has finally grown impatient with him and just given away to Huddersfield's bench. Luton Town, Tom Ince. Yeah, Tom Ince is going to look back at that one summer when he turned down Inter Milan for Hull. Yes, Hull, as the moment where he single-handedly chucked his career in a blender. Again, after ripping up Blackpool in 2013, he had Brendan Rodgers supposedly trying to bring him back to Anfield. This guy was supposed to be the next big thing. Good Christ, if he'd gone to Italy when he had the chance, he'd have been playing in the same team as Nemanja Vidic, Matteo Kovacic and Mauro Icardi. Anyway, now he's 29, discarded at Stoke and just loaned out to Luton Town. Just what? Middlesbrough Paddy McNair. Yeah, you see Scott McTominay stamping his mark on the Manchester United first team? That was supposed to be Paddy McNair. Another versatile midfielder. He was at Old Trafford for 5 years. He was being talked up in Louis van Gaal's one for the future, but now at 25 he's playing for Middlesbrough under Neil Warnock, having been trapped in the grimy northeast of England for half a decade. Millwall Jed Wallace. I remember I briefly lived in Portsmouth back in 2015, and I remember those fans literally tossing themselves off into a bowl of cornflakes over the existence of talented 20-year-old midfielder Jed Wallace, a guy destined for the Premier League in England apparently, after scoring 17 goals from midfield and being named the League 2 Player of the Year. Well, again, 6 years later, and he's just spending his peak years stuck in Championship mid-table. It's a bit of an anticlimax. Norwich Ben Gibson. Yeah, I think the world and his mother probably overhyped Ben Gibson while at Middlesbrough. After captaining his boyhood club to promotion, the football world sort of had a meltdown, tipping him for England squads. Apparently Pep Guardiola wanted him at Man City. I promise you, if he had wound up at the Etihad, Guardiola would have quickly suffered a midlife crisis. He's now 28, on loan from Burnley and Norwich City, and right now, he's probably about 24th choice for England at centre back. And lads, that's being nice. Nottingham Forest, Jack Colback. Now you might think there's nothing strange about Jack Colback stuck in the Championship, but lads, do not forget the hype about this boy at Sunderland. Back in 2014, after scoring in a tiny weird derby, he was suddenly dubbed the Ginger Pirlo and actually managed to claw himself into an England squad. I know, Roy Hodgson actually trying to replace Steven Gerrard with a guy whose first touch is probably illegal in about 16 different countries. It showed maybe the manager should have been stuffed in a home. Nowadays, the arrival of Colback at your club is about as appealing as stapling your face, but back then, both West Ham and Newcastle were actually fighting over him. What happened, Jack? Preston Josh Harrop. Okay, I know he's currently out on loan at Ipswich, and I know he's had his injuries, but Josh Harrop, how quickly his potential fell off a map. Everyone seems to forget that he actually scored in his debut for Manchester United in May 2017, becoming the club's 100th different goal scorer in the Premier League. He was the top scorer for the under 23s with 10 goals. Here was a homegrown winger about to be the next big thing at Old Trafford, right? No, he then rejected a contract offer to move to Preston, where he's now just used up and forgotten at 25. QPR Tom Carroll. It's mental to think Tom Carroll turns 29 this season. It was only the other day he was being groomed as the next homegrown Tottenham midfielder. Let's not forget, he played 30 games for them during their title challenge back in 2016. So how is he now wound up spending his prime at QPR? What happened, Tom? Reading Obiajaria. Listen, I don't want to write off a 23-year-old midfielder, but lads, Obiajaria's career has stalled. This guy was on the books of Arsenal for 9 years before moving to Liverpool in 2014, where he ended up making his Premier League debut for Jurgen Klopp in a 6-1 win over Watford. This guy was supposed to be the business coming through that Liverpool ranks, right? Plucked out of the same youth team as Trent Alexander-Arnold. But he was just sold to Reading for just £4 million. Rotherham Joe Maddock. Alright, I realise this one might be a bit harsh, but lads, Joe Maddock was part of the Leicester under-18 squad which won the FA Premier Academy League back in 2007. The guy was voted Leicester's Academy Player of the Year. His teammate Andy King stuck around long enough to win the actual Premier League, but Maddock, nah, he's 30 and playing for Rotherham. Sheffield Wednesday Izzy Brown. Part of the reason why Chelsea didn't really care about losing Kevin De Bruyne in early 2014 was because they already had the exciting Izzy Brown coming through, right? This was a kid where Chelsea actually went to court to drag him out of West Brom, and he was part of their title-winning squad in 2015. Surely he was going to break into their team at some stage, right? Or even when he went on loan to Huddersfield, he utterly lit up the Championship to get them promoted in 2017. Surely now he get his Chelsea chance under Antonio Conte, right? No, he's actually had 4 loan moves since then. He's still technically a Chelsea employee, but stuffed out on loan to Sheffield Wednesday, and I'm pretty confident Thomas Tuchel doesn't even know who he is. Stoke Rabbi Matondo. Okay, no, I don't want to be too mean and write off a 20-year-old child. That would be ridiculous. But lads, the hype train surrounding Rabbi Matondo, he had offers coming out of his ears. He was held up as another Jadon Sancho, another star in Manchester City's academy, got himself an £11 million move to the Bundesliga with Schalke. This guy was going to follow in Sancho's footsteps, right? And be worth at least 50 million quid by now. Nah, he's 20 and stuck out on loan at Stoke. By contrast, if you offered Sancho a move to Stoke, he'd more than likely punch you in the face. Swansea Wayne Routledge. I remember Wayne Routledge back when he was a teenage winger breaking through at Selhurst Park in 2005. He was held up as one of England's next big talents. Spurs were trying to sign him every half an hour. Nah, he's been at Swansea since 2011. 10 years of his life at Swansea City. Good Christ. Watford Tom Cleverley. Yeah, remember when Tom Cleverley broke into the Manchester United team under Sir Alex Ferguson? I remember there was a debate at the time over who was more talented, him or Aaron Ramsey. Wayne Rooney was calling him the next great English midfielder, and he was representing his country at the Olympics. Now again, he's 31 and stuck in the Championship with Watford. Wickham Daryl Horgan. To be fair, none of you will have built up Daryl Horgan. This was more the Irish hype. After exploding for Dundalk 5 years ago, here was the exciting Irish winger scoring against Zenit St. Petersburg in the Europa League group stage. He was being linked with Everton and Newcastle. I was genuinely thinking we just uncovered the next Damien Duff. No, he'll turn 30 next year, so clearly this Galway lad is at the peak of his powers right now, and the best he can do is Wycombe Wanderers at the foot of the championship, where he hasn't scored a single league goal in 25 attempts. So much for being the next Duff. Anyway, that's it. Let us know in the comments what you think. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.